Hi, I'm Richie Zellen, and in this video I want to teach you a transcription of a solo by one of my favorite jazz guitarists. I'm referring to the late great Jim Hall. And as we analyze and learn this solo, I am going to show you why he is considered the father of modern jazz guitar and regarded as an important influence by many great guitarists such as John Scofield, Bill Frissel, Pat Metheny, John Abercrombie, and a host of others. Now, this is a mega lesson loaded with lots of useful information, so stick around because we're getting started now. Welcome back to the Jazz Guitar Channel, and if this is your first time and you want to learn everything you can about the art of playing jazz guitar, please subscribe and be sure to click the bell icon so you won't miss anything. The transcription I'm going to teach you is off Jim Hall's album All Across the City and features two choruses from his solo on Bemsha Swing, which is a popular 16-bar blues by Thelonious Monk. And if you're serious about learning it, you can download all the necessary files from my website. And that is jazzguitar.richiezellen.com, and you'll find it under this lesson's title in the blog section. And the download includes a PDF with the notation and tablature, a band-in-a-box file with the solo and rhythm section, a MIDI file of the solo that you can open up in your favorite sequencer, an MP3 of the solo and backing track, plus a lead sheet with the main melody of Bemsha Swing. And this is what I want to play for you first, just in case you're not familiar with it, so you can later appreciate what Hall does over the progression. So here's the head to Bemsha Swing. The first chorus of Hall's solo is for the most part an embellishment of the main melody you just heard. Therefore, I transcribed and will be teaching you only the second and third chorus. So without further ado, let me play it for you. Here it goes. During the late 50s, early in his career, Jim Hall found himself as a newcomer in a jazz scene which featured such guitarists as Wes Montgomery, Jimmy Rainey, Tal Farlow, Barney Kessel, and several other bebop virtuosos. And he felt that he would never be able to compete with what these guys were doing. So he started exploring a style which featured more space between the notes. He played more legato, and instead of playing through composed solos like most of the bebop players, he started using motif development. And I tell you this because as we analyze this solo, I will be pointing out several motifs and showing you how he develops them to tell a story. to keep the listener engaged. So having said that, what I am going to do next is play the solo in 4-measure fragments and explain what is going on. And at the very end of this whole analysis, I am going to demonstrate how I take all these concepts and apply them in a different solo that I play so you can practice doing the same. So let me play the first 4 measures slowly. 1, 2, 3, 4. The first thing I want to point out here is the fingering that I'm using. I can't be sure what exact fingering Hall used, so I try to use my experience as a soloist and what I feel is the most logical choice. And this happens to be a blues in C. So what I hear and visualize when I hear Hall playing is the shape which represents the E chord in the cage system, but I play it all up in the 8th position for C. I always try to pick fingerings where I can visualize the underlying chords as I play. This is very important. If I can't understand the lines I'm playing in relation to the harmony of the moment, whatever ideas I learn from a transcription are not going to carry over into my improvisations. So, can you see that? It fits perfectly into this shape. In terms of what he is playing here, I want to point out something that a lot of guitarists who get into jazz these days initially fail to understand. And this is the reason why on my website I offer 2 online courses and 5 books devoted to the rudiments of bebop. There is no modern or post-bop jazz without a foundation in bebop. Yes, what Jim Hall is doing here is defined as post-bop guitar. However, in the first couple of measures, he reveals his bebop foundation. So let me play measures 5 through 8 now. 1, 2, 3, 4. 2, 3, 4, 1. Here you can hear Hall taking the motif he introduced in the first measure and varying it and bringing it to a conclusion. He plays okay. And measure 8 then features a pickup to the 4 chord of this blues progression. I'm going to play measures 9 through 12 slowly. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2. 2, 3, 4. So interestingly enough, Hall hints the first 2 notes of the main melody here on the first measure. And in measures 10 through 12, we not only have a bebop line, but it also doubles as a development of the motif introduced in measures 1 and 5. So this is it's kind of a variation of that riff, only that he develops it further. So let me play measures 13 through 16 slowly. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. 1. Okay, here Hall is completing the chorus back on the 1 chord, and also building up to start the next one, which is full of post-bop concepts. The first measure here, that is measure 13, develops the initial bebop motif for the last time. That was the first measure of this chorus. And here, you know, several measures later, it's so it's still there. And that's what motif development is. Now, measures 15 and 16 feature a heavy dose of post-bop, and this is very Coltrane-ish. He takes a short three-note motif, you know, and applies rhythmic displacement to it while shifting it intervallically outside of the changes. Let me play measures 17 through 20 slowly. 1, 2, 3, 4. 3, 4. 1, 2. Now the first measure here is the conclusion of that three-note motif sequence that started in the last two measures of the previous chorus. And here we see how Hall is interpreting that first C as a C7 sharp 9, you know. Plays the root, the flat 7, and the flat 9. Sorry, and the sharp 9. The second measure, that is measure 18, has a chromatic scale starting on the flatted 7 of the C chord. And even though the chords here are A flat 7 and G7, I'm sure that Hall is simply thinking over the initial C7. So he plays after all, these are just passing chords resolving back to the C7. And it is clear that Hall is targeting that final E, which happens to be the major third of the C chord that again comes up in the following measure, that is measure 19. Now, the interesting thing is that here he is again introducing a new motif, which he is going to develop down the road here, so listen carefully. Measures 18 and 19 outline the E flat 7, D7, and D flat 7 chords. And Hall simply takes the major triad for each of these chords and plays them in second inversion, ascending and descending, until reaching the C chord's root in anticipation to begin the next line. Let me play measures 21 through 24 slowly. 3, 4. One, 2. 2, 3, 4. So here the first measure starts with the final note of the previous measure, which was an anticipation. And of course, this is the root of the C chord. What is truly interesting is the phrase that he starts on the third beat of this measure, and this is the chromatic motif that he played in measure 18, now being developed. Okay? And in measure 18, just to remind you, he played here he's playing. It's kind of tricky to play. A lot of slurs. The final measures of this line are a perfect example of Hall's use of space to let the music breathe after playing a very busy phrase. And this allows the listener to take it all in. It's like when we say something very deep and we pause for the other person to briefly think about what we just said before continuing. So now I'm going to play measures 25 through 28 slowly. It goes like this. 1, 2, 3, 4. 3, 4, 1. One, two, three. Here we are starting with the 4 chord again. And what does Hall do? He implies what sounds like the first 4 notes of a classic bebop blues by Charlie Parker that just so happens to be played in the key of F, and I'm referring to Au Prévov. No? And what he plays is very similar. Just 1 note difference, but it's kind of like he's implying that. He might not be, but it well could be. Interestingly enough, I remember hearing an old Sonny Stitt recording where he plays several Charlie Parker compositions, and guess who's on guitar? None other than a young Jim Hall. So it's evident that back in the early days, he spent some time playing all the classic bebop tunes and even a lot of Charlie Parker tunes, especially on that occasion. Moving to measures 26 through 28, Hall plays an embellished version of the Bemsha Swing theme that corresponds to those chords. And by doing this, he is hinting to his listeners, especially those that aren't musicians, where he is in the progression, and demonstrating that he hasn't totally abandoned the main theme. And I believe that this might be something that Hall learned from one of his early influences, saxophonist Lester Young. And he plays. And notice the enclosure at the end, another typical bebop concept. That's pure bebop there. Now keep in mind that he is improvising and developing all these ideas in the spur of the moment. I've heard Hall improvise over Bemsha Swing on different recordings, and each time he'll tell a different story featuring all these amazing compositional approaches in exactly the right places. This is the trademark of a master improviser. Having said that, I am putting a link to the original Jim Hall recording of Bemsha Swing with this solo in the info section down below. And right below that, you will find another link to a duet version he played with bassist Charlie Hayden. And this way you can hear how he tells an entirely different story in both versions when he solos. And on that note, we've arrived at the 4 final measures. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1 and 2. These 4 measures are the climax of this chorus, and it consists of a 2-note motif in fourths, which he develops in a sequence that takes it outside the harmony, but smoothly resolves back into the harmony at the end of the measure. And he ascends briefly in minor thirds, and then he creates a descending sequence in seconds. And then he ends back home on C. This is again a frequently used post-bop concept. So why learn this solo, or any solo for that matter? To play it on a gig or a jam session? Absolutely not. This is the model of a great solo in the post-bop idiom. You study it so you can get into the brain of a master improviser and understand how he thinks and develops his ideas over a given chord progression. Even if you just learn how to play it slow, from it you can learn certain techniques by emulating the phrasing. Last but not least, you can also extract certain concepts like the motifs employed and develop them over other chord progressions. So what I am going to do next is improvise over a couple of choruses, and I want you to listen for any of the motifs and concepts we have just analyzed in this solo. I want you to hear how I incorporate them in my own playing, not necessarily note per note, but instead conceptually. Before I conclude, I want to say that I am aware that many of you might not be at the level where you can take this solo and easily extract these concepts to apply to your own playing. You obviously have to have a good foundation in different aspects of playing jazz guitar. And if this is your case, I want to invite you to check out my online bebop guitar improv courses, where I walk you through all the fundamentals of playing bebop as applied to the guitar. Through this course, I have helped hundreds of guitarists worldwide take their playing to the next level and understand how to become jazz improvisers in a logical, structured, step-by-step fashion. So for those interested, I have included a link to the site in the info section down below. Well, that concludes this mega lesson. If you enjoyed it, please like and leave me a comment, as that is the easiest way you can help support my channel and help it grow so I can keep bringing you more lessons. And if you're new and haven't subscribed yet, please do so, and be sure to click on the notification bell icon so you won't miss a thing. Have fun and see you in the next video.